Hey, checking in on Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. This is chapters 18 to 31. I think Jane Austen is like the Elmer Leonard of Victorian Regency novels. Well, I'll go with in comparison to Victorian novels, of like she's very dialogue driven and very cut out the boring bits and just get straight into it and just like finely honed. um, I can see why she might be a much more popular um, novelist than someone like Trollope or someone like Dickens, because their books are large and semi kind of baggy. And while, you know, we still enjoy that in our male authors today, there's also a great fondness for kind of those finely honed, just really dialogue driven um, books. And there's also something about Jane Austen, which even in someone like who I like really enjoy, I've been really enjoying my Trollope and his female characters. This has this really does have the point of view of a narrator who is someone who like, I'm living as a woman in this society, and while I'm going to probably be, there's propriety and probably internalized, just this is how things are. There's also just something there that it's just like, yeah, this is the lot that we're given, and I'm going to frame this in a light, kind of fluffy, kind of romance plot, but I'm going to kind of make fun of it, and I'm going to kind of go on about stuff. So in this section, we've got Mr. Collins, the pompous priest, who proposes to Elizabeth, and she's like, no, 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 and he pretty much fairly quickly goes, oh, okay, and he proposes to Charlotte, his Elizabeth's older friend. She's like 27, which probably makes her the ancient friend, who actually gratefully accepts, doesn't have any particular um, romantic feelings towards him, but just like is grateful to like, oh, good, a position, because an unmarried woman is it could have a very freaking hard road. So she's probably entering into this in the right spirit. And it's interesting later when Elizabeth visits them, you can see that she's sort of set up the life like, okay, her husband's going to like live his life, she's going to live hers. She's going to tolerate his pomposities and idiocies and all this stuff, but it's probably going to work out. And you can see that like it's the two women looking at each other going like, yeah, I guess you, babe, you're going to make it work. He's a doofus, but you can make it work. So that's good. um we do get in this sections where you can see very clearly what's happened is that, well, other than other than other than Elizabeth and Jane, who are pretty cool about the whole, like, she's really into Bingley. Bingley is very into her, but her mother and I think some of the sisters are like, just like, yeah, we scored it. You're gonna marry her and you're gonna get stuff. And they say this very loudly and indiscreetly, and Darcy does overhear them. And pretty shortly after that, the Bingleys leave with no plans on returning. And you do get the sense that someone has tipped them off that this is a mercenary woman that they've decided to view, in their own prejudice, have viewed Jane, who does not have, their family does not have money, as mercenary, that they're just after Bingley for his money. And so have dropped her like a hot thing. And indeed, later when she bumps into the sister, Bingley's sister, it's just like very much like it's coolness, sister, or something like that. And you know, it's not, it does not go over well. Now, Elizabeth Jane decides to go have a change of scenery and go visit somebody. That's when actually she does get to see, I think it's the sister, Bingley's sister, who is like very cold, very like cut off, and he's like, oh, okay. And you can tell she's kind of heartbroken, but yeah, it's not going to happen anymore. And I hope it's just a misunderstanding. She's very, very thing. And Elizabeth is a lot more about it. It's her sister is being done dirty. um you know But so yeah, Elizabeth goes off and visits Charlotte and Mr. Collins, and they have a very hilarious thing of Mr. Collins and his pomposities, but also his employer, the great Lady Catherine de Bourgh of the thing, and how she's just telling everyone exactly what they should be doing, and Elizabeth gently sasses her, which is like you could tell it's not possible, but it's just like, oh, it gives you the spirit and the spunkiness and just like kind of that character of Elizabeth, which is just so you appreciate, even though she is rather quick to make jump to assumptions. And Mr. Darcy arrives as a thing because Catherine has like decided that her daughter is going to marry um, Mr. Darcy. Mr. Darcy, and that indeed Lady Catherine and Darcy's mother maybe decided together that yeah, they're going to get married. And you know, and Elizabeth's first question to him is like, "Oh, so Did you see Jane at all in while you were in London?" And he's kind of like confused. It's like, "No, I didn't have the thing." It's like he's not up on, like he may not have actively dissuaded them. So there's a little bit of plot twist there. And they have a wonderful kind of just like sparring back and forth at a party where, you know, it's like, you know, she's saying like, oh, I could tell you terrible things about him. He went to a dance, and he refused to dance more than 4 times, even though there were plenty of women there waiting for him, and it's like, you know, who needed a dance partner. And he's like, you know, well, I didn't want to, you know, I couldn't introduce myself to them. I didn't know them. I only knew the ladies my own thing. Yes, and whoever, you know, it's not like anyone ever got introduced at a dance before. It's like, and it's just like it's a wonderful back and forth. You know, things are going to heat up, and she's probably going to get more pissed off at him because this is exactly that wonderful thing of like you know, it's the cliche. This is the start of the cliche, or even who knows, maybe she's making fun of the cliche at the start, but it becomes the great example of, you know, she doesn't like him at the beginning so much, and it just there's the heat and there's the spark and all that. It's really well done. But yeah, it's also just really well honed. I can see why Jane Austen is one of these novelists that, like, in comparison to someone like Trollope, who I do enjoy, but I have to kind of jig myself onto his speed. Jane Austen's like peppy, peppy, peppy. She does feel like the Elmerd Leonard of the Elmerd Leonard being kind of the very honed um, kind of thriller writer, thriller mystery, not mystery, thriller, kind of hard-boiled detective westerns. They're just, you know, very, very like dialogue driven, very plot. We're going to get through this quick kind of thing, but in a in a fun way. We're going to cut out all the boring parts. I get that with Jane Austen in a kind of cozy, kind of Edwardian way, or a horrible dystopian nightmare for women kind of way. One of the two. All right. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. And I'm also watching on YouTube the Lzzy Bennett Diaries, which is Pride and Prejudice, but told as a web vlog, a fictionalized, obviously, web vlog of Lzzy Bennett and her sister Jane and her really slutty sister. I can't remember what her name is, but there's a Mr. Darcy and there's a Bing Lee, and at this point, you know, they've got, you know, Jane and Bing Lee are like, oh, they're really together, and Lzzy does a really hilarious impersonation of her mother with a southern accent, saying, "We got it, you know, it's like, you know, we must get them married off," and kind of a funny Mr. Bennett impersonation by her friend is with a kind of a hat and pipe, which is endearing. So it's a fun kind of telling that way, which also gets um, that kind of light and a kind of just good storytelling, just but done through a different medium. It's just, I think it shows you how solid something like Pride and Prejudice is, of how it can be taken and retold in multiple different ways, or, you know, staged in multiple different ways, many multiple tellings of it. I'm pretty sure I've probably seen a more traditional telling of it. I think I have, or if I only, but it's funny that I went to the Lzzy Bennett Diaries for my thing from about like I think 6 years ago because I watched it live, not live, but I watched as the episodes came out when it came back, and I think it's like 6 or 7 years ago, which is crazy. All right, I've done a fusing enough for tonight, and we'll go up and say hello to the puppies. Ciao.